Hello, hello. Welcome to Movie Night. Welcome to the very first episode of Movie Night here on the Anorex Entertainment channel. I am your host, Samee Ramirez, and today I am joined by my guest, Dom Martino. Dom, how are you doing today?
Hey, pretty good. Sorry that your engineer here today couldn't figure out technical difficulties a lot faster so you can get this done, but here we are. This should be fun. I'm excited. Yeah. I'm happy for you.
No worries, we're here.
Finally got your own show on Movie Night. This is cool.
Thank you.
This is exciting. We're here to talk about Princess Bride, I think, right? Anyway.
We are indeed.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah, so our inaugural episode is going to be The Princess Bride, the cult classic. I don't even want to say cult, like it's a classic, period, I think. It came out in 1987, directed by Rob Reiner, written by William Goldman, who also wrote the novel that the film was based on. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I remember watching it as, I want to say I was like in 7th grade. And I watched it like a night before school, and I stayed up way too late watching it because I had to finish it. I've been obsessed ever since. It's one of the most quotable movies of all time. It's just one of the most iconic movies of all time, I think, period. And I think that's because it's visually stunning. Every single actor in this movie is giving an A+ performance. They all understand the assignment. And the story is so rich and thematically complex while also being, I think, very universal. Because to me, this is a movie both about like irony and satire. I think it's important to like remember that like this is a satire. Like there's irony dripping in every single scene of this movie. That like we can sit here and all day and just analyze this movie by the irony and the satirical elements of it, and cover it there. But it's about that. It's about stories and storytelling and how we pass on stories, what the emotions we go through in the name of stories and storytelling. And then obviously it's also about true love. It's about how love perseveres. And that's, I think, the main thing about this movie is love, and how does it survive even when like death is in the world, and how do you survive even when the world is unfair? Because that's another thing I think this movie is like an intent of the movie, that the world is not fair and you should not wait for the world to become fair and to be able to do things. And so how do you have true love in a world that's like that? So yeah, that's to me, that's my overall thoughts on this movie. What do you have, Dom? What do you think are your overall thoughts about The Princess Bride?
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I might have watched Once Upon a Deadpool instead on accident. Was that not
God
the right one?
Damn
Is
it.
that not the one? Okay. Listen, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on this movie, The Princess Bride. I think, first of all, this, I'm going to go back, I guess, a little bit and talk about my experience seeing it for the first time, because I think that's something very special within itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I told you this story maybe off camera a little bit. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but I joined drama club when I was in high school. Yeah, make fun of me. But
so did I.
Yeah, and you know, that was one of those things that I just never thought I would, you know, want to do in general, is drama club. And I joined it with a lot of hesitancy anyway, because I really liked the teacher that was directing the play. I had a lot of respect for him. He knew a lot about like great cinema. He talked to us all the time about great cinema. And those are some of my favorite moments in drama club, was just listening to him talk about great cinema and just things like that. Like growing up, I always had like Star Wars and things like that, you know, like and maybe like Lord of the Rings. So I always kind of enjoyed like the fantasy world based on that. But I never really understood like cinema, what that meant, and all that kind of stuff. Like I liked movies my whole life, but I'd never appreciated cinema. You know what I mean?
The
And
art.
the art of it. And
Yes.
until I joined drama club, and lo and behold, the teacher, um, whose name I will not say because I don't want to get sued. But
Fair.
he,
Totally fair.
either way, he would always talk. He was my favorite teacher in school, though, and he always talked to us about some of the great movies that he loved and grew up on and stuff like that, and how it related to the play that we were doing at the time. And we had this big party at the end of it all, and he screened for us. I'll never forget this. The big projector in the auditorium, The Princess Bride. I'd never seen it before in my life, and
Yeah.
I saw this film then, and I swear to God, it was just I never, after seeing that the way I did, I never regretted joining drama club after that. Like I was so much more grateful for it, and I think that was like the moment that like I fell in love with cinema, and like, because to me it's like this and Star Wars are like access points as far as like getting into some real like great cinematic fantasy films, and very,
Yeah.
artful fantasy films. Like this is like an access point, and Star Wars is an access point for me,
Right.
in terms of falling in love with the fantasy genre, and also just the art of film, especially when I get older and rewatch them through the eyes that I have now as a film lover, the cinema lover that I am now. I mean, this movie is, it takes so much from some of the greats. Like this is something I noticed watching it this past time. I mean, like I kept thinking of Seventh Seal. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've never heard of that. No.
It's a really old film starring Max von Sydow. I highly recommend it. That's a request, by the way. If we could ever talk about that on movie night, I would love to talk about the Seventh
Nice.
Seal.
All right. Seven Seal.
It's amazing, and it's one of the greats. It really like started the fantasy genre of film, in all honesty, in a lot of ways. Like most filmmakers do take from Seventh Seal, who are going to tackle fantasy, and especially like in this medieval type setting. And I kept like looking at Rob Reiner's direction in this, and seeing Seventh Seal in so many different areas. I was like, this is the same tone as Seventh Seal, the same type of aesthetic. Obviously this is in color. Seventh Seal was black and white, but it still has like that same type of thing going on to it. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. And I mean, the other thing I would point out here is, I mean, Rob Reiner is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, whether it's this or
Period.
Misery or Stand By Me. I think Spinal Tap.
When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met
My favorite
Sally.
movie of all time.
I think Spinal Tap's a tad bit overrated, but that's just my own personal nitpick. But
I haven't seen it. And that's one of my embarrassing.
It's
I
funny. It's
seen.
just a tad bit overrated. I feel like it's definitely the lowest on the list. But either way, he's one of the best of all time. I mean, obviously, if you grew up with grandparents as old as mine, you watched Rob Reiner as the meathead as in the show All in the Family growing up. But so that's kind of how I always remembered Rob Reiner growing up, and so to see him tackle a film with such gravitas as this, as a lot of his films have, but I think no more than The Princess Bride. You know what I mean? I think that The Princess Bride has the most amount of like gravitas in terms of all of his films, and just the things that he's, because like you said, everybody working on this knew the assignment. So Rob Reiner is no exception to that. Like, everything he did with the direction it's perfection. Everything he wanted to execute in this film, he did it perfectly. The only other comparison I can give is maybe Misery. He did that, but like Misery's on such a smaller scale. This is impressive because it's so grand, and it feels like one of these movies that is going to stick with you for a lifetime, and I'll remember for the rest of my life, and mostly probably because I have a very special story behind it. But on the same hand, I don't know what it is, but there's something about this film that makes me want to keep going back to it. And I think this last time watching it, I was able to put my finger on it, and I kind of feel this way about the original Star Wars: A New Hope. What George Lucas did with his genre of movie is they are making these movies and taking them seriously and making some of the best stories in fantasy, but at the same time, it's a parody of fantasy. You know what I mean? I feel that way about
Exactly.
Star Wars and this movie, and I think that that's what makes them work so well. Is they know how to poke fun at their own genre, while making one of the best stories in their own genre. But that's all I got. That's all
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
got. Yeah.
No, exactly. That's the thing. I mean, I told you earlier the tagline for this movie, which is, I don't know if it's the official one, but it's my favorite one. It's that not just your basic everyday ordinary run of the mill ho hum fairy tale. And the thing is, like, that's true, but it's also, but it is, though. It is your basic average everyday fairy tale. But it's not. It's making fun of it as well.
Yeah.
That's why it's so that's the charm of it, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, the fact that it's a story, you know, it's like we're watching a story within a story, you know, that
Uh huh.
it's
Yeah.
the that we start with, because I also want to kind of go through the movie a little bit, and because we open with just this grandson being told a story by his grandfather, and you understand that the whole time that it's a fiction that you're watching, but you're also taking it seriously, and it's that kind of, it's that weird space when it gets meta, but it also makes sense.
Right.
It's that weird spot in the Spider-Verse where everything clicks,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to Fred Savage as well. I find him to be. I
Always.
always think he's such an underrated actor. Anytime I see him
He's
do
so
anything, I
great.
think he's really,
Yeah.
really good. And this
Mm-hmm.
movie as well, I think he just really nails the part he's supposed to be playing. I mean,
100%.
he's really, really good. And if you, I feel like without him, casting is key in this movie too. Like, let's be real.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh,
feel like,
that's part of why this is like a kind of a lightning in a bottle type of movie, and so many times movies like that happen because the cast was just, it just happened, the right people happened to be alive at the right
yeah.
time, you know.
Right. No, I agree, and
Absolutely.
I think Fred Savage is probably one of the best people to open this film with, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, he was pretty hot on Wonder Years at this time, and I think that, to
You're right.
start us out, this is a part of the reason it's so accessible to people, is like to start us out on somebody who is,
Exactly.
as relatable as him. Is just it was a really good decision, and I think he
Mhm.
works the way he was supposed to. So yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I heard that this is a theory, and watching it this time, I think this is might be correct, or at least there's a strong case for it. So there's a theory that the grandson, that his father is recently dead, because we don't see his father, we see his
Yeah,
mom,
I
but
heard
where there's
this.
a thing that his dad just recently died, and that's why he's home, like he's sad, and that's why the grandfather comes in to like try
Right.
to cheer him up. And I'm like, that checks out. That checks out a lot, because also a
It
theme
does.
of the movie is like, can love persevere after death? Like, you know what I mean? And so for him, for his grandfather to tell him that story, that like, yes, love does happen, true love is out there, like, it makes total sense.
Yeah, it does.
it, I think they're right.
Yeah.
There's also then, so then at the end he goes to sleep, so then is the movie we were seeing with Buttercup and Wesley, was that his dream? I also think that might be true, because it
It's
ends with him going to
possible.
sleep,
It's possible.
so maybe he dreams this movie. That's my theory.
Yeah, real
I
quick
think I'm
too.
right.
One of the things I liked about the opening is he the grandfather's telling the story, and the kid is hesitant about the story at first,
Yes.
obviously, and then he comes around. He's like, well, wait, grandpa, now you got to tell me the rest of
That's one
it.
of the best parts. Yeah.
And I think it works so well because, of course, you want to hear the rest of it, because it's written so well. It brings you in, sucks you in. You have this it's very simplistic in the beginning. It's simple.
Right.
It's like, anybody would be like, yeah, where's this going? And I
Mhm.
think that so to have the kid like relay your emotions on the screen is like very
Exactly.
smart.
It's also, I really think it's also because I've loved that, like, he kind of goes on a journey as well. Like
Yeah.
the grandson has a whole like character arc that we watch just in his reactions
Right.
to his grandfather's story,
Yeah.
like I love when um he's like, when she gets thrown to the eels and they're like, she does not get eaten at this time, you just you looked worried, I didn't want to upset you. And she's just like, no, it's fine, it's fine. And it's kind of the thing of like that you have to let the story happen, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That by the grandfather being like, okay, you have to worry it, that it kind of ruins it, you know what I mean? It halts the story. It would be so much better just to wait and watch Buttercup be safe, but you have to
Right.
be like, oh wait, no, it's okay. And I mean, the same things with like the kissing parts and all of that. He's like, no, skip that and all of,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And then around comes to the
Excuse me.
end where he's like, no, you can read this part, like continue.
Yeah.
And he's like understood, like you can't just skip to the end because
Yeah.
you know, again, like life's not fair. It would be
No.
great if we can just skip to the end of the story, but you can't in real life, you know what I mean?
No, it's extremely relatable, and that's
Yeah.
um again the big theme of this movie, in my opinion, is, or the big trick, I suppose, is to be relatable, and I think that that's what makes it work in a lot of
Yes.
ways. In a lot of ways,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So now I want to talk about when we get in. So now we get into the story and we see Wesley and Buttercup. It's beautiful as you wish. It's absolutely iconic.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say. It's just, it's beautiful. I love it. But what then we get to some of the best characters with Indigo Montoya, Physique, and Vizzini when I think the story really fully gets going.
Yeah.
And I read another theory that also I think this is right, that they three are like kind of the id, ego, and super ego. You know what I mean? Like they're various facets of like the human mind. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like bent on revenge, just basic wants. And then Physique is very like moral and understanding, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
And then Vizzini's very like, what's good for me? Like how can this benefit me? So that's what I mean by that. And I mean that's a again valid reading because I definitely see that.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie The Hidden Fortress,
I haven't.
Old Kurosawa film? Um this is something that I feel like George did with Star Wars as well, and another thing that makes this movie so smart in terms of its
Mm-hmm.
filmmaking is that and Hidden Fortress does this. We we're not being hit over the head. Like, yes, we kind of start with the Wesley Buttercup thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not being hit over the head with them. So what the
Right.
film decides to do is the first characters that we're really getting attached to are side characters. And I think that that's incredibly smart. And George kind of did that as well. George talks about Hidden Fortress all the time in reference to Star Wars because it is the inspiration that it's where he got the inspiration to start the film with R2D2 and C3PO and start the story
Mm-hmm.
that way. Because the fact is if you hit us over the head with the main characters at the very beginning, then the story almost feels like you almost kind of back into yourself into a corner. I feel like as a
Right.
writer, narratively, to where you're going to naturally underdevelop everybody else because if you're starting with your main characters, like Wesley, that would be the protagonist in this story. If you
I
start
think
with
Buttercup's the
Wesley
protagonist.
and Buttercup, I guess, in my
Yeah.
opinion, anyway, the way I look at it,
Yeah.
Wesley and Buttercup.
Narrative, I mean more like narrative wise is how I think about it. Like
Sure.
story structure wise, like who goes on this hero's
Well,
journey?
that's the brilliant
Buttercup.
thing because even Wesley isn't Wesley when we meet him, you know? And I
Right.
think that that's what's so brilliant
Fair.
narratively is the fact that you if you start developing your non-leads to start
Mm-hmm.
with, then the story's just that much richer. If you start with your protagonists or protagonists, just depending on what story you're telling,
Mm-hmm.
that's not world building.
Right.
That's just, especially in fantasy, you have to do that because that's not world building. That's just you've already written yourself into a corner. The way I look at it, in a lot of
Right.
ways, if you just start that way. So you got to. I think it's great to have an access point through other characters, and I think that
Yeah.
was something I related that to Hidden Fortress, another great fantasy type film from a long time ago that I think that Rob Reiner definitely drew inspiration from, and I know George did as well, and two of the greatest, at least, filmmakers in my opinion, in terms of the fantasy genre. So
Well,
I mean,
100%.
it's just, it makes sense that they would both look at storytelling in that similar way, and try to access it, and like it's. Kurosawa is one of the best storytellers of all time in terms of all his films, but Hidden Fortress especially is great. So it just made sense to me. I drew the comparison as to where he might have drawn inspiration from to structure it this way. I don't know how it is in the book though either. It might be like starting with them as well, which is great if it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking from Rob Reiner's perspective, I guess, when I watch this. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, for sure. I also want to talk about, so moving on just a little bit,
sure.
that just how this is like, again, one of the most quotable movies of all time. I just wrote down some of my favorites, but around here we have I think it's like kind of a little throwaway one, but when what Fazzini goes like, do you want to go back where I found you, unemployed in Greenland? And I just have always thought that
That's a good
was so
line.
funny.
That's a good line.
One of my favorites of all time.
Anyway,
You got any other quotes?
Yeah,
kind of from the
my
first
favorite
chunk
one
of the movie?
is, my name is Indigo Montoya. That's my
Absolutely.
favorite. That whole line is my favorite line.
We're gonna get to that fight next.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why is because I've seen it reused in so many other properties, and it's been effective every single time when you approach something with that type of a line. If you Game of Thrones, season 4, Pedro Pascal's character, the Viper, his real name is something Martell. I can't remember his first name for some reason right now, but it doesn't matter. He says, so and so Martell, you killed my father. He does that same thing in Game of Thrones. Yeah. So I've just seen this, like, it's not a bad trope though. You know what I mean? I love that.
This is where it started. This is the OG.
Right. So
they're all trying to copy Indigo Montoya. They're all trying to be him.
Right. And but it works though. It's so powerful. Right. It's such a powerful trope, I guess, that it works so much, and is effective so many times in many different things. So that's my favorite one, hands down. I mean, Inconceivable is a huge standout, obviously, as well.
Yes.
Wally, I can't remember his name, the actor. Wally,
Wallace Shawn. It
Wallace
just came
Shawn,
to me.
Yeah, he's so good. He was great in Marriage Story, by the way. I don't know if
he was absolutely.
He was really good.
Also, one that I didn't really notice until this rewatch, but of Billy Crystal's character, Miracle Max says, He says, "True love is the most important thing in the world, other than a nice MLT."
Yes, 100%. Everything Billy Crystal says would also
perfect.
go into my favorite quote
100%
bracket. But did you ever hear the story behind?
I also love oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna ask if you ever heard the story behind Billy Crystal, because
didn't he come in late, or I know a little bit,
possibly
it was something, right?
But in Montoya, the actor,
Mandy
Patinkin bruised his ribs from holding in laughter on the set. So or no, it wasn't.
I love that.
It wasn't Mandy. I'm sorry. You know who it was? It was Carrie Elwes. Because
love that even more.
So
that's
I'll tell
twice as funny.
Well, I'll tell you why. Is because, well, first of all, he had to hold in laughter. He had to pretend to be dead, but
right, in the pit of despair.
Yeah. So the way I've heard it from out of Carrie Elwes' mouth is, Rob Reiner yelled action. Billy Crystal did not have a script, and he went on a 3-hour medieval. He did a 3-hour medieval comedy routine. Did not stop for 3 hours. 3 hours, and it eventually got to the point where Rob Reiner, he had to leave the room first.
He was like dead.
He was laughing too hard. Rob Reiner had to leave. Yeah. Every actor had to leave. They finally had to keep Carrie Elwes there, and he bruised his ribs holding in laughter like he had an actual injury. His second injury on this set.
Does this exist anywhere? Like, can I watch? I would literally watch the full 3 hours.
I don't know. That would be great.
It's probably incredible.
I'm sure a lot of it's in. I haven't read it. I want to pick this up as well. Carrie Elwes' book that he wrote.
I was going to say,
I want to pick that up as well. But that's.
I've heard it's really good. I've heard it's cool.
Second injury he sustained on this film, by the way. Do you know what the first one is?
Didn't he broke his toe or something? Right.
He did, because the whole
during the fight.
I don't want to segue to this because it's your show, but I'll just go ahead and tell this part of it, is that the entire sword fighting sequence he shot with the broken toe, riding Andre the Giant's ATV as how he broke his toe. Because Andre the
I
Giant.
can't believe it's like this kind of the stupidest reasons. Like you'd expect, like, oh, during the fight he went really hard or something,
No, Andre
you
the
know.
Giant was like.
But nope.
The way he told this story is that Andre the Giant would roll up next to him, because that's how he had to move around, was on an ATV. Like, he can't walk all the way across the
Right.
set and everything. He was
Right. It was probably
clearly,
huge.
it was hard for him to do. Yeah, so he had this
Yeah.
ATV specially
Right.
brought for him. He'd ride it around. He'd always roll up next to Carrie Elways, and he'd always go, "Hey boss, you know you want to." And then, like, Carrie always would deny him. He's like, "Not today, Andre. Not today. I got a lot to do. You know, maybe next time." Every day, he'd be, "No, hey, boss. You know you want to." And then finally, Carrie always was like, "All right." He gets on it, just flips the thing, and it, like, he said he felt his toe, like, actually go backward and, like, hit his foot. And, like, yeah, and he was, like, talking about insurance policies on movies. Is like, I don't know if you know how insurance policies work, but if you basically, they are put in place because if you get hurt doing a stunt or something, the insurance is going to cover that, and that way you're not liable. But if you get hurt riding Andre the Giant, if you get hurt riding Andre the Giant's ATV, then you're just a dumbass, and they don't do anything for you. So he basically,
like, that's not on us.
He gets injured. He had to hide it from Rob Reiner, and he does this whole sword fight scene, and then, like, Rob Reiner, like, brought up Carrie Elways over, and he's like, "So Carrie, when were you gonna tell me that you broke your toe?" It's just amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. But yeah,
that's incredible.
Love it.
One of my absolutely favorite stories. Phenomenal.
One of my favorite stories.
That is chef's kiss. That's absolutely incredible. Well, I mean, we're already talking about it, but this fight scene between Indigo Montoya and the Men in Black Wesley, which also a point that I remember distinctly the first time I watched this. I remember the exact moment when he's like climbing up the rope and they're trying to get it cut. It's like a bulb went off in my head, and I went, "Oh my god, what if that's Wesley?"
Yeah.
And I like freaked the frick out. And I got so excited, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it. This is incredible." And I feel like watching it again, I feel like it's kind of obvious at some point that this may or may not be Wesley. Like, I feel like almost everyone at some point that pops into your head, which I'm like, nonetheless, I love that, like, and I love that though. I love that, like, you kind of think, because you're thinking about it, you're like, who is this dude? And then you're like, oh wait, I know who that is. Yeah. But it's great. But yeah, so starting off, because I love this, like, the kind of 3 trials he has to go through.
Oh yeah.
To get Buttercup back. They're all incredible. I mean, the fight, the sword fight, and then like the physical fight, and then the Battle of the Wits is just one of the funniest things of all time. Another quote I love during that is when Wesley goes like, "We'll find out who is right and who is dead." Like, it's just an incredible delivery. Yeah, so what do you got about all of that?
Yeah, I mean,
any of the 3 kind of trials.
I'll make this one quick. I know we're pressed for time, but I mean, they're all great, honestly, but the one that stands out to me the most is the sword fight. I think it is the greatest.
Absolutely.
It's the greatest sword fight in cinema history.
It's one of the best scenes in cinema history.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, it's
you can write like, I just can't imagine the amount of like academic papers you could write on that scene alone.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And it's all shot in frame. It's all it's
gorgeous set. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then you add on top of it Carrie Elways' broken toe, and that makes it even more impressive that it turned out as great as it did. And then
I'm very impressed.
I mean, and then you look at, I mean, the fact that this whole thing, I mean, it shaped Indigo Montoya, because everything about his personality is right here at the beginning of the scene. Because the fact that he helps Wesley, even though, he helps him to the top to kill him, but he has, his heart is in there.
I know, that's the thing, like, he helps him.
Right, he's not a bad guy.
He does everything he can to help him in his fight against him, allegedly.
Exactly. He's not a bad guy, and it shows it right there from the beginning, and then you understand his motivation right there. The Wallace Shawn stuff is, obviously we get a quite a bit of inconceivable. If I can go back just a little bit too, even before this, because another one of my favorite quotes is obviously anybody want a peanut? Like that's one of my favorite quotes from Andre the Giant. That's earlier on, but still I missed that earlier. But anyway, go back to the trials though. Yeah, I mean they're amazing, and yeah, it's some of my favorite stuff in the film. I mean, I also like that during this we're getting intercut scenes with the great Chris Sarandon as well, which Chris Sarandon is incredible in this movie, and he's doing the job he was told to do. Like you said, everybody knew their assignments.
They understand the assignment. Absolutely.
Yeah. All 3 trials were
it's
great.
Just the fact that he's like recounting the sword fight. He's like moving forward. He's like, oh, he must have done this exact maneuver. And then he went back, and then they ran west. Like,
and I mean, just real quick too, speaking of Wesley, I mean, Cary Elwes is unbelievable in this movie.
Incredible.
Like, he is
understands
Wesley.
The assignment.
Nobody else could have played that character. Like, I cannot.
Yeah.
Because I know like a lot of different actors were actually up for this role, and now that I'm thinking about
who
it,
else?
it's like I don't know.
Who else got like close? You don't know.
It was a lot. I know he's like the cliche one anytime you say somebody's like up for a role, but like Kurt Russell, I think, did audition for it. It was one of them, and no, exactly. You don't see it. Well, Kurt Russell also auditioned for Han Solo. You can't see that, but
right.
But I'm saying it is that perfect. Like, it is what Harrison is to Han Solo, Cary Elwes is to Wesley. Like, honestly, it's that perfect a marriage. And I can't remember who all auditioned, but either way, Cary Elwes just knocks it out of the park. He's one of my favorite actors to watch on screen anyway. But like in this film, he just, there's something, he knows it too, like in real life. He's said many times that he'll never get a role better than this. And it's like, no shit, you
heard
won't.
That, right?
You won't. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing for, like, this is skipping ahead a lot, but it really sums up, I think, Cary Elwes's performance is the scene where towards the end, once him and Buttercup have reunited, and then Humperdinck comes in and he gives that monologue of like, we are going to, what does he say? He says, we're going to fight to the death. And he says, no, we will fight to the pain. And then slowly explains it. And he says, like, isn't it's like, oh, I get it. Then my ears, and my ears like, no, your ears will stay, and I will tell you why.
Yes.
And like, it's these it's the little inflections and the small words he says, and the way he holds complete eye contact that entire monologue. It's a thing that like Wesley will do throughout. Like, it's at the beginning too, when he's saying goodbye to Buttercup. Like, he holds full eye contact with her the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, it's again, these like small things, just to the fact that he would continuously hold eye contact. That's such a small detail, but completely makes his character. And again, like the small ways he says, just the way he says words. I love the way Cary Elwes says words. That is the bottom line.
Well, he articulates them in such a way that fits the type of character that they're going for, and it's Absolutely. So perfect. And you watch him throughout his work, and it's like, he's not going to get better than Wesley. I like watching him on screen a lot, but in anything, but he's never going to get better than Wesley. That's for damn sure. And I mean, real quick fun fact too, but speaking of Cary Elwes, so the funniest moment that's ever happened on this entire set was the day that Andre the Giant farted, because he said it was absolutely monumental, and just like he said it could be heard across mountains. It lasted for 20 straight seconds, and it was unbelievable. Just it was mythic. Fact. It was. He said it was an epic fart. I guess that's in the book too. It's at some point in his book.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Just so to keep going, and then after that, they of course Buttercup and Wesley reunite after this. They have the whole "as you wish," absolutely iconic. Yeah. And then again, I love when we cut back to the grandson, and he's like, this is a kissing book. Like, I don't want to hear it. And the grandfather goes, well, you might not mind so much one day. And he's like, nah, whatever. Again, he has a whole character arc. It's wonderful. And so then after this, we move into the fire swamp where we learn where Wesley has been with the Dread Pirate Roberts. I always found this just to be like, again, the way he says this monologue is no other person could say a monologue the way he does. And the way he just like will move Buttercup out of the way for something and then the fire will come up. Like and it just all makes so much complete sense when you're watching it. It doesn't see it's like a dance almost. This scene. Sure. Yeah. I am absolutely obsessed with the whole fire swamp sequence, everything. Yeah. The fight with the ROUSs.
Right.
Love all of it.
Oh yeah.
They dive into quicksand and like has to come pull them out, and I love when they go in, how you like can't see them, it's just showing like the struggle.
Right.
And then they just pop out. I love that entire thing. What do you got about Fire Swamp?
Oh, for sure. And when we really start to see the chemistry between Robin Wright and Carrie Elwes is in these moments here, and I just think it's so great. And Robin Wright's another one we haven't really shouted out yet in the sense that she really just does a terrific job as well. I couldn't think of anything better for Buttercup. I got to be honest. Like she's had a lot of iconic roles out throughout her career. I think Jenny probably will be her most iconic from Forrest Gump, but this is still like up there, and like she really just nailed it. And yeah, I mean, what a superstar she became, and rightfully so. I mean, when you watch this, it's understandable because she knew the assignment. Once again, we keep saying that, but it's the truth. It's just there's no other way to describe it. So at this point,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's see. So after the fire swamp, we have them get captured by Humperdinck again, and then I don't have much to say about that. Again, it's greatly acted. We love them. We love all of it. We move into Wesley getting tortured with taking years off his life. That always freaked me the hell out because I just imagined it would be like in the pit of despair, like that thing. It's just like, how would you imagine if sucking a year out of your life would feel?
Yeah.
Like I can't even, like, just the worst pain in my life is all I can imagine.
Yeah. No, I know.
It freaked me out.
That's it's obviously very it's an interesting concept. You know what I mean? Because it's not something that you think about because it's never gonna like actually happen. And you wouldn't live through it if it did. But it's an interesting concept. That's one of the things that makes this sort of fantastical world so amazing and unique as well, is the fact that a lot of these ideas like that are just so original. And I think that's another thing that just sticks with me about this movie and everything. I mean, just all the originality that's just covered throughout it. I mean, it really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, upon this rewatch, I am gonna make the connection that the grandson stops the grandfather and says, like, wait, no, you read that wrong. Like, Humperdinck doesn't marry Buttercup. Buttercup marries Wesley. Like, you read that wrong. And he's like, and then the grandfather has to like explain, like, life isn't fair. Like, it doesn't matter. You want me to keep reading or not?
Yeah.
And then immediately after that, Buttercup has a dream where she gets announced as queen. And that's when like the old witch hag woman then just like does like the boo, just completely boos her. And I'm like, I think that might be a little bit. I'm like, do you think that's the boy? A little bit, the grandson.
I think the story really did end the way the grandfather said it ended, and he just made up the rest of it. Like, so the grandson would be entertained.
I was like, that's not a coincidence that she gets booed 2 seconds after the grandson basically was like, "Excuse me, that's not a coincidence."
No, that's an astute observation. Don't get me wrong, like, because I think that could be a really good parallel there. That's cool. I never actually thought of it that way, but for sure it might be. I think that no, I always looked at this as like the story did end one way and grandpa made up the rest of it, so the grandson could stay happy the rest of the night and sleep well, because he's yeah, I mean, he's just that good of a grandfather, and I think that's part of the heart of the story. Is I guess we'll never really know if the story ended there or not.
Yeah, you could argue that. Yeah, no, you could argue that because again, like the book is set up a little bit differently, but it's kind of set up as the book is the good parts version of some other book.
Yeah.
And that's the novel that we're reading that the movie is based on. So that could make sense. You know what I mean?
I'm just thinking from Rob Reiner's perspective and how he looks at it more than anything, you know, and how he wanted to interpret everything. Again, I haven't read the book. It's hard for me to reference.
It was like you guys figure it out.
Right. Yeah. I think so. I think
he was like, you figured it out.
I think as a filmmaker, I think that's part of what makes some great fantasy stories great is ambiguity, and it just depends on how ambiguous you want to make it, I think, and do you do it the right way? And Rob Reiner certainly does do that the right way here. I mean, it's you know, it can look very simple, and it is on a surface level, and that's part of why it works as well, but I do think that there's a lot of hidden themes, a lot of ambiguity, a lot of things that are left for the audience to interpret a certain way or not, and I think that's one of the great things about this film and Rob Reiner as a filmmaker. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking of, you know, audience interpretation, we have an audience and we have a surprise for them. Not surprise, but an announcement. I guess I try a segue. I tried. I couldn't just blurt it out. We have a merch store, guys. It's at merch.streamelements.com/anorax. It's right above my head. We got shirts, we got hoodies. What else? We got mugs, right?
We got mugs with our mugs on them. If you like to listen to us on stereo, you like those little avatars, you can get a mug with those little avatars now. It's pretty cool. Really awesome stuff. Go check it out for sure. I was browsing through it and pretty blown away by some of that stuff too. I was like, I gotta buy me some of that. So for sure.
It looks good.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I like it. It's cool. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just like I might as well address the words over my head. So after this, we go into another great Robin Wright moment with her whole speech to Humperdinck about how, like, I've never loved you, I will never love you, I will be dead by morning, and that's where she convinces him to send the letters out that she never sends. I just always thought that was incredibly great acted monologue. And then again, the kid coming in with like, someone has to get Humperdinck, right? Like, who kills him? And again, just like, calm down, like, you don't want this story to be ruined for you. Kind of moment.
This movie is very if I may, this movie is very artsy in a lot of ways. I say this because I'm thinking about that line delivery, like I'm kind of playing it out in my head. And in a lot of ways this is an art film, because I know it's accessible to anybody, but the amount of art that's put into it is pretty astounding, because I think about the way that characters speak, and they kind of speak the way that they would only in this universe. You know what I mean? Because the thing is, like, if you're watching like Stanley Kubrick films, like Clockwork Orange, Shining, everybody in all of his movies kind of have a certain way of delivering lines, a certain way of speaking. Same with Tarantino. I feel like Tarantino characters talk like Tarantino characters, and Rob Reiner doesn't really have that through line necessarily with all of his films. Like, he kind of does. I mean, he kind of does in a way, but I think more so with this film. Like, he set this up as its own particular universe, and he's like, characters are going to speak the way that they're going to speak in this universe, and you won't hear anybody speak this way anywhere else, but it's going to fit the tone of what I'm going for. I find that to be very artistic in a lot of ways, and I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. I forget where I heard it, but it was in a YouTube video by some professor about, I forget about what, but he said something that, like, the characters speak only like themselves. That it's to that point. You know what I mean? And that's the thing with all of those movies. It's the thing, they only speak like themselves, that the writer has created such a good character that they are complete enough that they will only say what they want to say. They are so individualized as humans are as we only speak like ourselves.
Yeah.
That you've gotten those characters to that level.
Yeah.
So, and like that to me is like when we talk about like mastery of the craft and like master storytellers, like that's it. When you can do that, that is a part of it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They have to blend in with the world around them. That is definitely a part of the craft for sure. And if you can do that well, then kudos. I mean, that's all I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then after that, we got the Brute Squad getting together. I love, though, before that, the scene of where Indigo asks his father to, like, you know, he must point his sword. And he's going around, you know.
Right.
Trying to figure out where to go. That is also it's such a beautifully weird shot when he's, like, praying on his sword to his father. Like, all of a sudden, it's just, like, this god shot, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but strangely, it's one of my favorite shots.
I know, but it's beautiful. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, it's making fun of it while also being a beautiful example of it.
It looks good. It looks good. It really does. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love all of that. And so then we have Fezzik and Fezzik and Indigo come back to save Wesley. They get out of there. They go see Miracle Max. We have the iconic Billy Crystal and Carol Kane, I believe.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Unbelievable scene.
Billy Crystal.
I would watch the 3-hour version of it. It's incredible.
Again, he did this without a script, and I don't think I've ever laughed harder personally at a scene in the movie. You know.
I just realized I can't believe that Billy Crystal just made that up then.
Yeah, Rob
True
Reiner
love is
said,
the most important thing in the world, other than a nice MLT. Like, I can't believe that just came from his brain.
They brought him in.
I just connected that.
He was like a last-minute phone call. He came in, he committed, he did the makeup, the prosthetics, and all that. Rob Reiner said action. He went on a 3-hour comedy routine, medieval comedy routine. A lot of it had to be cut mostly because of the subject matter of that routine, from what I understand. It was very, this is supposed to be accessible to children, and the stuff he was saying was not.
Keep it PG. Keep it PG.
But I couldn't imagine being there and just hearing that. And he is... he is the best actor in this movie for that reason alone. The fact that this entire thing, he had no script, he went off. He was told the situation that was happening, and here you go, action, boom, 3 hours. It's amazing.
I honestly, like, the only thing I could ever compare it to is like Robin Williams recording for the Genie. Like, I think that was like it was 6 hours or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That he recorded just of improv.
Yeah,
just going off.
I think they both had the same approach to acting in that way, where they just
they were great friends as well. Absolutely,
exactly. They don't need scripts; they need bullet points, and you roll the camera, and you're gonna get gold. It doesn't matter especially if you're doing something that's comedic like this.
That's again like gold. That's a genius level. Like, to talk about like masters of the craft, like that's the one level above. That's the genius.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. 100%. All right, so then moving on, we have them getting into the castle. Meanwhile, we have, again, absolutely iconic marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. While Humperdinck is trying to force the marriage of him and Buttercup. Again, the thing of you can't fast forward to the end. The thing is, that's what Humperdinck is trying to do in the wedding. He's just trying to get to the end, and again, it doesn't work. You can't just pronounce man and wife and have it work. You skip the entire ceremony. Again, like, you can't just skip to the end of the story. You have to read it and go through the hard work of doing it. Same with literally everything else in this movie. It's called thematic elements, people. It's wonderful. So we have after that, and then we have Indigo coming face to face with Count Rugen, I believe. I just wrote down Six-Fingered Man. That's how I've always thought of him in my head. And I love that, like, so the first time he says, "My name is Indigo Montoya," to his face, it's like the most epic, wonderfully said thing. Like, it's exactly
100%.
how he thought it would be. And it's so good.
100%.
And he just runs away.
Yeah.
And then Count Rugen just bolts, leaves, runs away. Like, that's what this is the things I mean, like the dripping and irony of, like, it's making fun of these things while also exactly being that thing.
Yeah.
While also having it make sense and be absolutely charming.
Yeah.
I've always loved that. And so then we have their big fight where he keeps saying Indigo Montoya to his whole monologue to him, gives him the same scars that Count Rugen gave Indigo as a child. And then we have that intercut with Buttercup and Wesley's reunion. And then obviously the Indigo fight ends with him finally getting his revenge.
Another great fight.
Killing him.
Yeah.
It's incredible. That fight is so good.
Yeah.
Again, absolutely incredible. And then, like I said, the whole Wesley has this whole monologue and they get Humperdinck basically, and yeah, and then all is saved basically. I love also the Carrie Elwes at the end of that monologue, how he just goes, drop your sword. Again, wonderfully put. And then I want to talk about the ending in a separate thing. You got anything else about that end fight?
Right, like I guess the
getting them
big,
out of the castle,
the big climax, I guess, the big climactic moment, I guess.
Right.
I mean, I compare this to the way that the Battle of Yavin plays in A New Hope at the end there. It doesn't feel epic. It doesn't feel huge. It just feels like it's supposed to be there. And I think that that's part of what makes it work so well.
But the stakes are still there.
The stakes are there. Don't get me wrong.
There, but it doesn't feel as grand.
I feel the stakes, but I think to compare this to a lot of epics or fantasy films or things like that come out now, the difference is like, it feels like filmmakers trying to make this, but this just feels like this, you know what I mean? And it always, every time we get something else, it feels like this sort of climax is trying to be mimicked, and it's trying to go bigger and better. And you don't have to be bigger and better, just be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just be.
Just have good characters, and then just let them exist. Like, do what they do.
Yeah,
and yes, that is really hard, and that's why, these movies are praised so much, because they achieved it.
I do. I compare it to the Battle of Yavin and New Hope, and even like the Empire Strikes Back climax. I mean, it's just in a lot of the stuff in Kurosawa films. I mean, you go back and you see where Rob Reiner draws a lot of his key, a lot of his key influences come from, because it is. It just is. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the magic of it. It just is. It's nothing. It's not trying to be anything more than it just is. And that's what I love about it so much. I praise about it so much. I feel like we're supposed to be here naturally. I don't feel like anybody's working too hard. I just feel like, because again, if we go back to a lot of the things that we were kind of talking about in the beginning, the way that he introduced characters, the way he built the world, because he did all that, because all the work went there, this can just exist in its own thing, and it just feels right. And because all the work was developing everything. He did that. That's the part you're supposed to get out of the way, in my opinion, as a filmmaker early on. And because you put the work in toward the beginning, it works at the end. So
absolutely. And also, I do know that also, like, Rob Reiner was obsessed with the book and loved it, and came at it with that love, but wasn't precious about it, but still came at it with love and respect. And you can tell that's what, again, so many of these things that are based on something else, if you come at it with a place of I love this thing so much and I just want to do a film version of it justice, then that's where that's where your best stuff is going to come from.
That's the thing, is a lot of people can watch this discussion and go, well, yeah, Dom, but he had the source material, or yeah, Samee, he had the book on hand. But the fact is if you take a filmmaker today and you have them try to adapt this, now I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them, give this to Hollywood now, ask them to adapt
Please
this.
Don't, honestly.
No, I'm saying, but if you did, and you asked them to adapt this, you have the odds are, I mean, there's a lot of different things that are going to be cut that, Reiner made sure were going to be integral and built and used to build, lay the groundwork. He laid the groundwork with the integral pieces, which a lot of filmmakers now, when they're trying to make a film on this scale, just forget for whatever reason, or Hollywood in general, or the corporations just forget that these pieces are integral. Instead, they're keep the action in. You know, why do you need character moments? People will go because you have action, because it's grandiose, and it's like, you need to build the world. You need to keep integral pieces of things, and character building is that. But I'll stop so we can talk about the ending. That's my whole take. But
I know I 100% agree with everything that you said. But so the ending of this movie, I like get emotional every single time. So not only so it starts off with um, finally they're far enough away, they've gone off to freedom, and Wesley and Buttercup have one of the most great kisses of all time, and then the grandfather stops and he's like, oh no, you don't want to hear that. And then it comes from the grandson to say, no, I don't mind so much anymore.
yeah,
And then it continues, and again it's the resolution of true love's kiss, of like, and that representing again the theme of love does persevere, love goes on, love is real, love, like true love is a thing that is what we're working with here, you know what I mean? And then again after that, that's doubled down with then, hey grandpa, can you come read it to me tomorrow? And then he says, as you wish, which as we know is code for I love you. And then it just ends so beautifully. Like it's kind of, I don't know, it's like a symphony that just kind of ends, like the melody just ends kind of perfectly.
yeah,
Like it works on your ear, and it's just satisfying.
yeah,
Like a good meal, like it's just very satisfying.
yeah,
But also perfect. Like it was the perfect way to end that. It like thematically, visually, character wise, everything.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm obsessed with the ending of this movie a little bit. Got anything on that?
100%. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but again, it just feels like it's there because it's supposed to be there. It ends where I feel like it's naturally supposed to end. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like it's trying to prolong it. It doesn't feel like it's trying to pull one over on you, which I don't mind sometimes, but this is not that story. And it fits. The ending is fitting. And the line again about, oh, I don't mind so much anymore. It's one of the sweetest, most heartfelt lines in the entire world, in the context of the moment that it's being said in.
Absolutely.
So I think that when you take all that into consideration, the fact that, again, the hard work that was put in the beginning of this film, the groundwork, the layout, it all paid off at the end. That's filmmaking 101. And I think that this is why this is such an important movie. I know that people even get taught about this one in film school, or they get shown it in film school, and there's a reason for that. It's because this ending, it perfectly solidifies how you make a movie when you watch this ending, because you're like,
it's kind of the perfect movie, you know what I mean? Like
A plus
when
for
you
sure.
sit back,
Yeah.
like when you sit back and you look at it, you're like, it's like looking at the Mona Lisa. You're like, I can't. What? I'm gonna say that's not a masterpiece. That's not perfect.
No.
Like, what do I have to say that's wrong with it? Nothing.
Yeah. No, Rob Reiner's made some stellar movies. I do think that this is his masterpiece, and I think that this is the one of those, just, I don't know.
I have a hard time putting it over When Harry Met Sally, but that's more
enough.
of a joint effort with Nora Ephron. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
That's more of their movie.
Fair enough.
This was him like alone.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure that there's plenty of people that would prefer Stand By Me to this, or Misery to this. I even know some people that would probably prefer Spinal Tap to this, and that's cool.
Yeah.
He's a good filmmaker all around, but to me, like, this looks like the type of thing that, because he did this so early in his career of filmmaking too, I feel like he was just able to step back from this. And I think that, when he did step away from it, I think that even though, because at the time it didn't do well, we have to remember that, but I still think that this was something that he had to be
VHS hit.
Yeah, and he had to be enormously proud of it regardless. And I think that that's part of what makes this something to cherish, is because it is one of those movies in a filmmaker's career. It's like a hallmark, in that way.
I think that, and I think that is how it's remembered, because if I remember right, like Cary Elwes, Robin Wright, Mandy Patinkin, like everybody, Billy Crystal, like everybody who's talked about it since has been like, yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Like I love that I'm in that movie. That was so much fun. because again, they all understood the assignment because they all got it and loved it. So like, that doesn't just go away.
They should be. They should be proud of it. Yeah.
As they should be. They are all very good in it. They all did very good work.
Yeah, I mean, they knew it was a good movie, I think, and that's
I think so too. I think they were proud of it.
There's a reason, even though it didn't come around till later. I mean, there's a reason that it did gain the following that it did, and why it's still just.
And it's such a people pleaser too. You know what I mean? It's like literally anybody. Yeah. Anybody can watch it. Your daughters, your sons, your wives, your moms, your husbands, your dads, your grandma, grandpas, everybody.
Right.
Can watch. Your teenager, your young kids. Everybody can watch loves this movie.
And it's rewatchable. I think that, part of the reason why too, and I'll go real quick here. I know we're really short on time now, but
yeah. That was my last thing. So
no, you're fine. I just wanted to say this really quick. I think part of the reason it is so rewatchable and going back into the ending is because I think that, as an ending that satisfies you, or when you get to an ending like this that is so satisfying, you almost want to go back and be like, how did we get here? Why am I so happy? Right. And I think that that's part of it, but it all plays in. But brilliant movie. I mean, I love this film to death. I'm glad we talked about it. I want to watch it again now. So there you go.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Awesome. Yeah, totally agree. This is one of the best movies of all time, period. If you haven't seen it, why have you watched this? But also, please go watch it. It's perfection. It is absolutely the perfect movie. So yeah, that is going to be it for this first episode of Movie Night. First episode down. Thank you, Dom, for being here.
Well,
where can the people find you on the interwebs?
Well, I mean, before I get to that, let me just tell you what a magnificent host you've been. I'm excited to do more of these. I think that you just did such a commendable job helming this review today, and I was happy to be in your presence here, and this is just a wonderful experience and one of the best conversations I've ever had on this damn channel. So thank you for hosting as great as you did, and I appreciate you coming through and taking the gig, so to speak. And it's been an honor to talk about this film with you. I can't wait for future conversations. But yeah, you could find me on Twitter at Dom_Martino_ and on Instagram Dom_Martino_official. And you'll catch me here on Movie Night next week. Sammy's going to step out for next week. I'll be filling in for her. Not sure what we're talking about yet, but we'll get to that. There will be an announcement about that on the social media at some point. But yeah, guys, anyway, thank you for joining in. Also on Stereo, you can find me at Dom Martino. I'm talking to Samee there every Wednesday now, so every Wednesday night. So. And yeah, really quick, the only thing I wanted to say is I'm hosting the new show, the Anorax Entertainment Podcast. So you can catch that on Wednesdays and Wednesdays and Saturdays at 5 p.m. Hope you guys can make it. And thank you for joining. This has been awesome. But yeah, so Samee, thank you for hosting, and go ahead and yeah, do what you got to do.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the gig. Yeah, thank you for being here. So yeah, you can find me again on Stereo at Samee Ramirez, where Dom and I do shows on Wednesdays. I'm also on Twitter at Samee Ramirez and on Instagram at Samee Ramirez14. And then also remember, we are selling merch as well. The link is right up there. It is at merch.streamelements.com/Anorax. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. We also have Twitter and Instagram. Both of those are at Anorax Official. And then go ahead and make sure and like and subscribe to our channel and like this video. Make sure your notifications are on, all of that YouTube spiely stuff. And thank you for joining us. I hope you had a good time, and we will see you next Monday.
Wait, real quick. One more interjection, then I'll let you wrap it up. Sorry. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Amazon Music, make sure you rate and review as well, or whatever audio platform you're using to listen to this on. Sorry, go ahead.
Nice.
Do what you got to do.
No, that is all. Awesome. So we will see you guys next Monday.
All right. Thanks. Cool.